That's the way I am right now. I guess I'm the platypus.
How can I give when I'm laying on the beach? I don't agree with everything I do. So,
Neither do I.
If you're not tech savvy, you can always call Monica, but if you're listening to a podcast, you're probably pretty tech savvy.
Yeah, exactly. And a BLT costs $13.80.
Yeah.
Oof.
Wow. Where are you eating BLTs?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Northside Now. This is the podcast where we take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. My name is Patrick, and with me as always are my co-hosts, Glenn Miller and Kevin Bryant.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up, guys?
Good to see you again.
How's everybody?
It's been a long time.
Yeah,
It's like been a whole week.
It's been
Or
week.
a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going good. So everybody's getting ready for summer,
Yeah.
That's right.
and summer has arrived.
I'm not happy about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Today we also have Ben Ferguson with us
Guys,
in the room. So
What's up?
how's the weather over in your neighborhood?
getting warmer every day.
It is funny how we're just interesting creations,
Yes.
creatures. I wonder if there's a platypus somewhere going, well, this weather's just not any good.
That's the way I am right now. I guess I'm the platypus. I don't know. I've just adapted to the air conditioning, I think. So.
You're a marsupial mammal-like thing? Is that
Yes.
what that is?
We're interesting creatures. There's no doubt about that. Well, we have Ben in here today to talk about the board of directors, and I think they have some challenges for us and some encouragement and stuff for the month of May and going through the rest of the summer. So, Ben, what's going on with the board of directors these days? And we haven't had you in a while, so
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done anything around here in the last couple of months.
So there's been a few things happen.
Been totally dead.
Yeah,
Like
you know.
nothing.
Really?
No, I don't know what I when I got asked to serve, I'm not sure that I knew what I was agreeing to at that point. So I think we've now been through COVID and a lead pastor leaving, and and then onboarding a new pastor, and then just the intricacies of really creating the organizational structure of a church while you're still delivering services to 800 people.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting dynamic of you're having disaffiliated, you're creating the new infrastructure of a church on the fly.
Yeah.
And that's obviously got some challenges inherent in doing that. And so, I commend all of the folks in lay leadership for the commitment they've made over these last several months of really trying to walk through that process. And so I serve on the board of servant directors. We also have a board of elders. And I think that's something that, not everybody in the church truly understands is there's two distinct roles there. And so the board of servant directors, we're focused really specifically on the business, the assets, and the operation of the church. Whereas the board of elders are really specifically focused on the ministries of the church and really the important stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
We're here to make sure the light bill's paid and that we're doing all the things we legally need to do. It's been a lot of work. I think there's folks on the personnel team and obviously as staff, you've all been part of this process, is just walking through a lot of things that we hadn't looked at in 30 years and really didn't need to under the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And that was everything from having an employee handbook to walking through our payroll procedures, just to identifying job descriptions and just making sure that we were being equitable and fair and appropriate with who we pay, how we pay, all of these things. And that process at times is not comfortable.
Yeah.
So we've been doing that. I think it's been all of the folks on that committee have done great work. And I feel like we're coming to hopefully the tail end of the change process. And that's, I think that's probably been the biggest thing for everybody in the church is there's just been a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I'd love to say that we're done, but I have a feeling there's still more to go. It's a season of that right now, and we're just having to go through it. And I think all of us inherently are opposed to change if it affects us. But I think at the same time, I'm really excited about some of the things that have been born in the recent couple of months and just some of the ministries that I see really evolving. And overall, I think there's a lot of positive stuff going on here. And Northside is really starting to become that church that we all envisioned when we voted to disaffiliate.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of work to get to that place, but it's a fun process. And I think that in another 3 or 4 years, we're going to look back and see the foundation that we've created over these last 2 years to build something really special for this community and for Jackson and for God.
Yeah.
And I think that is why we're doing all this, is the end result. But I feel like in this process, of course, I wasn't here. We came right after the vote to disaffiliate, so I wasn't a part of that process. But it feels to me, and I've had this experience starting my own business, it's like starting a business in many ways. It's laying that foundation, all the groundwork for the work you will be doing. But that stuff is very vital in making sure that that perpetuates and it keeps working and it is efficient. And you mentioned legal. That's an important part too, that before was already taken care of. And it is a challenge to do. There's a lot to do. And not all of us see that. And we don't need to. That's the role of the people that are called to do that. But I commend all of you for stepping into that gap, because it really was kind of an open, wide open, okay, now what? Situation. And we've talked with Gary many times about maintenance and things that maybe the general attender here at Northside doesn't see.
That's right.
Don't need to see necessarily, but it is part of this unique fabric of what we call church, that we all work together to make the church work.
That's right.
And I am, like you, Ben, very excited about where we're headed, what we're getting into now, and what's ahead of us. It's just, I think it's a great time to be here.
I completely agree. And I've said to quite a few people, I'm looking forward to that day when my role of serving the church in this capacity comes to an end. I go back to just going to church.
Right.
Instead of knowing all of the how you make the hamburger meat and all that.
That's right.
Yep. And so it's, you mentioned the maintenance piece. That's something we've started focusing on in probably the last 3 years. And we've had a capital campaign to retire the debt on Hope Hall. And I think that's important because we've got a building that was built 20 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're still servicing debt on that currently. And there's a point in an asset where you really need to be prepared to maintain that asset. And that's what we're getting into today. And I think we've seen water leaks and different things that are just going to happen and that we need to be prepared for. And I think the board's done a really good job in terms of starting to plan and budget around those things. And so we've set up a maintenance reserve budget to start planning for that rather than it affect ministry when those things arise. And that's the main goal there, is that we never want to be in a situation where it's, hey, we can either replace this HVAC system or we can deliver this ministry to the community. And so, having served on the finance committee under the Methodist Church and then now serving on it now, there is such a better level of understanding in our budget and the staff input going into how we build that. And really being able to look at the needs of the church, both, on an annual budget side, but also really starting to look from a capital budgeting side to say, what are the most important investments we need to make into our ministries to have the most impact and deliver on the mission that we're called to. So that's an exciting process. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. Yeah, y'all spend a lot of time up here that people don't see, in and out of meetings and different stuff like that. And I'm with Kevin and totally thank y'all for doing all that hard work, because when you have all that tradition and all those years and that overarching umbrella of a larger organization over you, you don't have to worry about a lot of those little details. And maybe some of them should have been worried about a little earlier, who knows, but yeah, it's a lot of work. So definitely thank y'all for doing that. And you're talking about the maintenance budget and things like that. And we're getting into a time of summer and things where traditionally in every church in America that people tend to take off on vacations and things like that. And we're also kind of facing the realities of a tight economy right now. So how is giving, and do we have a challenge before us this summer to need to continue giving and those avenues? How can I give when I'm laying on the beach?
Absolutely. I think God calls us to bring our first and our best to Him. And so I think that, whether it's summer and whether we're at the beach or, and luckily through your work, and especially Patrick and Kevin, we can watch it from anywhere and we can keep up with the church. Now, I've really found that comforting, obviously during COVID, but, usually when I would go to the beach in the past or go on vacation, I was disconnected from the church. Yeah. And I've really, in my life, have made a commitment to try to watch service no matter where I'm at on a Sunday. And that's been really fun for me to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But again, I think for most churches, this is a time in the giving season that, we hit a trough. And so I think it's really important. It's never been easier to give to the church. And so, we really want to encourage all of the members, and not just members, those that attend, to reach out either through the app, through the website, on social media. There are multiple ways to connect and give to the church, and it's important for the church in that it allows us to budget better throughout the year. It's really hard to approve a new ministry or to look at requests coming out of the staff when typically in the summer months you get pretty far behind budget. And we're a church that always faithfully comes through at the end of the year. If you're going through your personal budget and you're looking at it and it's getting worse every month for about 3 or 4 months, it's hard to go, let's go do that new exciting fun thing that's going to do some great work for God, when you're watching it and you're going, the way it's going, I don't know if we'll be able to do that. So again, I think it's really helpful for the church if people can get at least on a reoccurring giving cycle. And I just encourage everybody to do that, is set up your tithe so that whether it's the first of the month or the 15th or the 30th or whatever that is for you, there's tools in place now that you can set that up. And you don't have to remember to bring the church or be in service that Sunday, but you're faithfully tithing every month, and then there's tools to help you with that. And I think if more folks at Northside do that, it allows us to budget better, it allows us to operate better, and it really allows the church to run a lot smoother throughout the year.
I know I was planning one of our summer trips, working on it yesterday, actually, as we're recording this. And I got up 3 or 4 different times and just had to walk around for a minute because things cost so much and things like that. And you want to be honest with your budget, and you're trying to keep things in budget. But when you're traveling with people and you're doing ministry, or you're reaching out to people and you're going to go paint a house, or you're going to mow a yard, you're going to do all these things throughout the summer on like a missions week, that cost adds up in a hurry. And you're trying to not pound your families, saying, this little event needs to cost you $500 this summer, because then no one comes, because you just can't do that. Right. So it does help to have those budgets in place and that working process. And that's one of the things, since I've been here, I never had to worry about overcharging our families or having scholarship money or money there to do what we felt called to do with the students. And so it is an important piece of the kingdom work.
And I have always seen the value, of course, having my wife was on staff, and we've been on staff in other places too, in church work, and the importance of the regular giving of the general budget funding. But there's also opportunities to designate for things. And I had someone tell me recently, I would be interested in potentially helping with this if I just knew there was a need there. And so I think it's all the challenge for us to stay informed about what the needs are. I've been really pleased to hear things when you then speak, or Kevin would speak about the state of the church and kind of where we are. And I think that's really critical when you're starting something new. But I also look forward to that continually. So we're aware, and the onus is somewhat on us too, to be involved enough to understand it. I mean, there are reports out there that give us a lot of the information that some of us say we don't have. We just have to look for it a little bit, but kind of have our feelers out and think about, if you own your own business, and this year, if you're looking back, was a particularly good year, what are the opportunities that you could use that for a particular ministry in the church? It's thinking, as we change and do things differently, it's thinking differently too.
That's right.
Because really, I think this was in the feed a few weeks ago, but about all of us working together to make the church work. I mentioned that. But that's how it works financially too. It's not like we have a foundation that is funneling money into this church. It's all of us working together. And years ago, we had a capital campaign. It wasn't equal gifts, it was equal sacrifice. And we've talked about that a lot at Northside, I think, historically. Some newer folks may not have heard that. But, stories in the Bible about people giving tons of money versus just a single piece, a single coin. Jesus had a lot to say about that. That is really the spirit in which you give. But the giving is a very Christian, important part of modern Christian's life. And so it's a challenge to everybody listening. It's a challenge to me and everyone else to be regular with that, but also look for opportunities. And being on the other side of that, just personally, I'll say being blessed in that way is something that you just can't put into words. And even if it's not just a direct financial gift, it's via a ministry in the church, it is life-changing. It's exactly what I think we as Christians are called to do. So I challenge anybody to think about that too. Investigate, see where you can contribute in that way, not just our time and our service, but our money too.
That's exactly right. Having disaffiliated, I think it's important that everybody knows that while we are very active in being good stewards of every dollar that comes into this organization, it's completely donor driven.
Yeah.
And so if anybody out there is cutting off their tithe, I mean, it's impacting ministry. And I will say, once you get into this position on the board, you get to hear everybody's opinion about everything.
Sure.
And
I've got a few. We'll talk afterwards.
It's definitely one of those where you've got 800 special interests, and you get to hear a lot of that. Now, I think I'll say that at times you hear people that get frustrated about one change or another. And their thought process is I'll drive change through my pocketbook.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really destructive thought process. Yeah. And again, it's what are you actively trying to change in that thought process? And I think it goes back to, this is God's ministry here.
Exactly.
And we're just helping to deliver that. And so I'd encourage everybody, even if things move and change and do things that you're not supportive of, realize that this is your church as much as anybody else's. And that, ultimately it's God's church, and all you're doing is hurting God if you're acting in that sentiment. So
it's like a family, and there's things that happen in your family that you may not always appreciate or like, or you don't say, "Oh, hoorah, that's what I'm for that," or not for that. But you're still a part of that family, right? And churches are a family, and I don't think whenever people tend to vote like that, they understand spiritually what they're doing to themselves. They may think they're helping push something for someone, but that's something that's happening with you. And so that's, we don't want to see people take that route.
Right.
We want them to feel loved, even though you may not agree with everything. I don't even agree with everything I do. So,
neither do I.
I'm sitting there going, why did I do that? I should have done that differently. You think of all that, but money in the church it's a tough thing. We don't like to talk about it. We know we have a new sermon series coming up that no one likes to talk about that either. But I think the good things that happen in the church are those things we don't like to talk about. Yeah. That's the good hard work that happens in church and because of church family. Yeah. And because that day, whenever you get the phone call that something really horrible is happening in your life or something really wonderful and fantastic is happening in your life, you tend to want to go to those church people to celebrate or mourn with. And it's nice to have all these opportunities and ways to have people plug in and serve other people in the community and invite them to be a part of the kingdom of God.
Absolutely.
So, good stuff there.
Right.
You can always give Monica a call here. She is amazing. Ben or Patrick, what's the best way, if I'm on vacation at the beach, what's the best way to make sure my ties are still going or I can get on that cycle of setting them up?
The easiest way is through our app. It's just right there at the click of a button. You could also get on the website, northsidejackson.com/give. And all of the options for scheduling, weekly, monthly, biweekly, however often you want to do that, you can set up recurring payments that way. Those are probably the two easiest ways, or the app or the website.
And what if I want to make sure that my money goes to the general fund, or if I want to send special money to the debt retirement? Is there a way to do that on there as well?
Yes, there's a little drop-down menu where you can select which fund you want your gift to go to.
Oh, like you said, Ben, it's just
try to make it.
If you're not tech savvy, you can always call Monica. But if you're listening to a podcast, you're probably pretty tech savvy.
Yeah, exactly. If you found us, you're pretty good. This is like geocaching, trying to find us. It's not that hard, really. Well, Ben, you also are personnel placements, so you do that. We're going to be talking to several people in the church this summer that do things outside of the church, and you bring some of that expertise to the board of directors. And so you do help the church with what you do in other parts of your life as well. So how's the job market? I know we hear a lot about Blue Oval and all these companies coming in, but we're getting past COVID. And there's a lot of people just graduated college and high school, and a lot of people looking for jobs, but we keep hearing there's not enough people to work, and there's not enough of this and all that. So what's the job market? What's that really look like in West Tennessee right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's on fire. And so, I mean, if you don't have a job, you're probably not looking very well. I mean, I think there are probably still some folks that are either underemployed or not employed in the area they want to be. But there's significant opportunity out there. And right now, I know just internally we hire 300 to 400 people a week just in West Tennessee. And that's not even getting close to the amount of
need
orders that we could be filling.
Wow.
And so I will say we tend to see things a little earlier than others, just being in the business that we're in. But it does seem like we're starting to see some softness. We've had probably 18 months of just some of the best job market there's ever been. We're starting to see the interest rates, the global instability. We're seeing some sales projections that are coming back a little bit. I think if you have been looking to get into the workforce, I would encourage you to go ahead and do that sooner rather than later, because opportunities might not be quite as plentiful as they are today. I don't think we're looking at a huge drop off a cliff, but I think we're probably going to get back to some kind of reality in the near future. That being said, Ford is about to land a massive facility in a couple of miles west of here. And that's going to change our economy and the dynamics of the labor force here, significantly over the next decade. And so it's not just the 6,000 people that'll be working on site every day. It's the 30,000 indirect jobs and the plants that'll be locating in all of the communities around West Tennessee to supply that facility that are going to impact that. So I think the wage inflation that we've seen over the last 2 years is here to stay. I think may continue. Certainly Ford will bring a level of wages that are very different than what we've traditionally seen in rural West Tennessee. So it's an exciting time. I think it's good for a lot of families. You're seeing livable wages pretty much across the board. You don't see employers that even 5 years ago we were seeing. You could still even occasionally see a minimum wage job. And certainly jobs that paid under $10 an hour historically. You're not going to find anybody for anything close to that. So in the long term, I think that's good for our community. But with that, we're now paying $5 for gas.
That's right.
And a SUV cost what a house used to cost. And so,
and a BLT costs $13.80.
Oof.
Wow. Where are you eating BLTs?
Jason's Deli.
Oh, wow.
There's those fancy BLTs.
I guess so.
I was shocked.
That's that premium bacon.
That still sticks in my craw. Not the bacon, but the price of it. Are people going back to the office now in West Tennessee, or are they still working from home? Or
I think certainly in the South, pretty much everybody is back to pretty much normal in terms of work environment. I think there are still a few states and communities that are a little weary of coming back, or that have just moved to a more remote work option. I think where we've seen some real disruption is probably in larger markets, where you've seen people that had the opportunity to stay home, spend more time with their family, and employers that realized that paying for a large office in New York wasn't that cost effective, and letting those folks work remote is better for the employer and better for the employee as well. So I think you've definitely seen some disruption there. Nashville is kind of an interesting market in its own right now. I mean, it's I think either the top one or two in terms of new employment creation.
Oh, wow.
And I think it and Austin were right there for high wage new employer creation. So it's I think we're caught between two interesting dynamics here in Jackson, and that we've got Nashville and spin off from that coming from the east, and then we've got Blue Oval City and all of the impact that's going to come from it on the west, and that's why you're seeing farms that used to be worth $100,000 selling for $1 million right now.
Well, and I was just going to say, we talked about wages and some of the job creation, but in terms of growth in Madison County, and I don't know if any of you have any figures or any kind of initial conversations about what Ford might do to the growth of Madison County and Jackson, but that's an opportunity for growth as sort of an indirect result of that here Northside.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a lot of really great things going on in our area, and I think it's downtown revitalization and the impact that's having. I think employer activity and just the availability of high quality jobs, and then just the regional aspect of we're in between two really good markets. And so Jackson has a lot to offer to a lot of families. And I think, the work that the school system is doing right now, I think anybody that's lived in Jackson for the last 20 or 30 years, there is some really positive momentum in our public schools right now. And what Dr. King and the group there are developing, I think, are creating some great opportunities and options for families looking for a place to grow up over the next 20 years. And I think that can do nothing but help grow the folks here, and I think also creates ministry opportunities for us in the process.
Yeah. What's the trend in Jackson? You're hearing a lot about people that are accepting jobs and then they kind of ghost out. They don't show up. They don't do. Are we seeing that here as well? Or is that just kind of a lot of hype and stuff that the national media is whipping up on us?
No, I mean, I think that's kind of a national issue. And it's more an opportunities issue than anything, is that, employer candidates have more opportunities available to them than they've ever had in history, at least in recent history. And so, it's not that they're necessarily ghosting. It's that you may offer somebody a job and they get 4 other offers in the time period between you offer it and when they start. And And especially as you look at more hourly positions and those entry-level roles, if they get an offer that's going to pay $1 more,
Sure.
they're typically going to move for that.
Yeah.
And so I think you're seeing a lot of that is it's just there's a vast gap between the supply and the demand. And so when you've got that, it's a candidate's market, and they're going to go where their best opportunities are. And so it leaves a lot of us employers kind of sitting there twiddling our thumbs when they don't show up for that first day.
Right.
And so it's an issue. It's interesting. You talk about the next generation coming into the workforce. It's the pathways that are available right now. I'm not sure that I've certainly in my lifetime, I don't know that there have ever been as many viable pathways. Just from an educational standpoint, you've got all of these dual credit options. You've got Tennessee Promise. There are so many ways for a child to come out of high school much further along on that path to a degree or a certificate or a skill trade.
Well, and you mentioned the school system, and early college high is a great example of that. So.
Yeah. Now you've got Madison on the campus of University of Memphis. You've got, there's just so many pathways like that. Then you've got the digital economy where, and I'm not necessarily advocating this for everybody, but I mean, there's the ability to go on YouTube and generate and develop a skill set that you can go out and make a very good living with.
Yeah.
And so when you look at, whether it's engineering from a computer standpoint or front end, back end development, there's opportunities. And then worst case is you go grab a car and log on to an app and you're an independent contractor for different companies.
Exactly right.
It's changing.
Yeah.
But there's still so much opportunity available. And, I think kids, have so many pathways to choose from.
Yeah.
That I think there are doors open no matter where you are, no matter what your circumstances are, there are doorways that can get you to a very good career and a good life for you and your family.
Do y'all ever get calls? Can you make me a TikTok star?
There's an opening for that.
There's an opening for that.
I don't know. My kids keep wanting to do a YouTube channel, and I'm like,
Mine say the same.
Kevin's got the skills to do it. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that.
Well, I do nothing at the house without consulting YouTube first.
I've probably learned more off of YouTube, watching YouTube videos than like in all of my years of going to school.
I mean, it's really amazing.
Yeah, I think there's probably every plumber in towns has gotten more business because of YouTube, because we go in there and break it worse.
Yep. So. Right. Exactly right. This is going to cost me more.
I could totally do that. I got that.
This is going to cost me more when it's all said and done. You ever run across that, Kevin, when you go?
Yeah. Yeah, we do occasionally. Well, one of the things that I wanted to just kind of cross my mind with all these changes we talked about in our world and the job market and the economy, how is Northside kind of coming alongside that? Or what are some of the things you've seen from your unique position, how this congregation is changing to not necessarily meet that demand, but to come alongside with the way our world is changing? And are there some things sort of on the horizon that you could point to that speak to how we are as a body growing and adjusting to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the changes we're going through inside the church are a response to our changing environment. I say that, but remaining core to our beliefs and not sacrificing those things. It's how do we address in mission and ministry to the people in our community when that's constantly evolving and changing, and where we, again, one of those is where do we find those people? And so, the ministry that you're in terms of delivering content on an app, on YouTube, on Facebook, that's one of those things that I think we have evolved very effectively into being able to move into that next step. And while, I'm still here, well, not the 11 o'clock anymore, the 10:30. I think that, there are still a lot of folks that want to engage that way. There are a lot of other folks that want to engage from their couch and at home, or they travel. And so I think you've got to be aware of those things. I think another interesting dynamic is the neighborhood that we serve. When this church was established, this was a country church, and then it grew up, and then we had Northside High School, and we're now many decades into this, and the neighborhood that we serve has changed. And the mission, the ministry needs of our community, and especially the one that surrounds us, are different than what they were 20 or 30 years ago. And so I think that's something that, we're investigating and looking through. What does that look like? And then how do we do that in the best way possible? And what's going to be the best investment of the church resources in doing that, and that still serves the existing congregation in the way that best meets their needs as well. So those are all interesting. I think, the other piece is planning for growth. And I think this has been a real struggle inside the congregation, and I completely understand it. But it's also something we've got to look at, is that we're a church body that's getting big, or it's already big.
Yeah.
But if we want to grow, it creates, there's an organizational structural change that had to occur. And when Don left, I think if you ask Don why he left, is the requirements we were placing on that lead pastor role are not tenable long term.
Yeah.
You can't do it all for 800 families.
Right.
And so that's been a struggle, is that, we asked the congregation, what do we need? And it was preacher, teacher, counselor. And so that's what we went out and searched for. And by doing so, it allowed two things. One is it allowed us to focus on those things and make sure we were delivering the best possible preaching, teaching, and counseling we could. The other piece of that was that we have two excellent associate pastors, and it allowed them to grow. And so it allowed us to ask Daphne and Gary to do more. And that was something they wanted. And so part of that was also pastoral care. And Don was great at this, I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And he would be at all of those things. And when he started, when he came in after David, we were a much smaller church.
Yeah.
And he had the time to build those intricate relationships and do every wedding and every funeral and everything in the church. Again, as we're at 800 now, and as we grow to 1,200 or 1,500, and that's not necessarily the goal of the church.
Right.
We do want to reach everybody that we possibly can.
Yep.
But it's not about the dollars, and it's not about member count.
Yep.
But planning ahead, if we grow to that stage, how do we functionally do that? And how do we do that in a way that's healthy, not only for the church, but for the staff that we hire?
Yeah.
Because there's only so much people can do. And so I think, probably in youth ministry, you've dealt with this, is you can't be everywhere at once.
No.
And those are just things that I think we as a board and the staff are trying to wrap our heads around. What's the best way to approach this body of work, and who does what and how? And I think that's probably the change that I think is hardest to swallow, is that it's different. And I look at Don, but that was obviously a big change. Is you've got a pastor for 20 years. Is that change? Is that, we have, and it's not Kevin different than Don, or he's not wanting to do those things. I think it's more from an organization. We've said, all right, we've got to find focus areas so that not only can we hire the right staff people, but we can keep them.
Yeah.
Those are some of those changes that we're really wrapping our heads around. Again, that goes to meeting the needs of not only our current congregation. If we turn into a people in place of grace, and all of a sudden we start having 50 or 60 new visitors every week,
Right.
How do we even approach that? And again, those are conversations we're digging in. I know the staff is as well. It's funny when we did the change on the service times, and we all knew that was a razor blade to walk down.
Sure.
But again, I think it was born out of the fact that, and it didn't sink into me. And I, when it first got brought up, I was like, oh, don't do this. and so,
Can't you wait till the next board
just wait. And, it didn't sink into me till I was meeting with an accountant that I work with. He had actually visited this church with a member for a while. And this was completely unsolicited, but he volunteered that he came to Northside. And I said, well, how was it? And unsolicited, he goes, it was weird a little bit in that I never had a chance to really engage. Yeah. He said, it was like we rushed in, and then after the service, all the pastors ran out.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't have a chance to talk with them or engage with anybody there.
Yeah.
And everybody else was just, there wasn't an opportunity to really engage with the congregation.
Yeah.
And that sunk in with me at that point. And I thought, I've been going here my entire life. I've never thought about those things.
Sure.
And I think it was helpful, Kevin coming in new to the church, he was seeing these things.
Right.
Yeah.
And as we started to, formulate around this people in place of grace, we weren't in a position to execute on that mission. And so I felt like the board of elders really were the ones that had to discern over this.
Yeah.
And again, it was the right decision.
Yeah.
Was it the easy decision? No. But I think, again, it goes back to, if we want to engage with our community that's around us, it can't just be church for us every time.
Yeah.
It's got to be for, it's the hospitality piece.
Yeah.
And so I think there's been great changes there. There's a team thinking about hospitality constantly right now.
Yeah.
And that's made up of church members. And so I think that's the last piece I would want to focus on is I think Kevin becomes the scapegoat for everything that changes that somebody doesn't like. And I continue to get everybody's kind of sidebar on this. And it's, I can't think of one change that's occurred in the church that was Kevin's sole idea.
Yeah, exactly.
These are ideas that are evolving up through the congregation, being discussed and prayerfully discerned over by two different boards. And it's not like these are secret boards of these are me and people that you see in this church every day that are not here because they want to be making decisions about the church. It's because we love and care about Northside.
And a lot of those things had been entertained in the past and just made the decision not to carry on with them at that time.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it sounds really new, but a lot of the people in leadership and the staff, these are some of the conversations that have been going on for a long, long time. I mean, even so, unfortunately, the person that sits in that desk and stands in that pulpit, they get blamed for a lot, but it's not.
Yeah. It's
the church body, the church leadership leading us. And that's, we ask them, lead us, take us places, but, don't pull on the rope too hard.
When I think, Ben, what you said, and I've been coming to this church for a long time as well, I guess all of us have in this room at least, and it's really hard to think outside the box when you're not having that contact. I encourage anybody to ask someone who's been here just one time or two times and see what the point of view is. And it may shock us a lot, because when you've gone to one place for a long time, or you've had that in your routine for a long time, it just doesn't occur to you that it might come across that way. And that's what I love. The genuine hospitality part of it is thinking differently. So that whoever's God's bringing to this church in this place in this time, we're not in the way of a potential relationship that they have with God. And that's really what it's all about. Sometimes we get focused on the little details that in the grand scheme of things aren't as important as we think they are or want them to be. But that's what I really enjoy about Northside in this process in this time right now, that we're thinking a little differently too, in addition to changing some things. So that's awesome.
And so everybody's going to have a chance soon to plug in somewhere and help if you're not already doing that, and to be a part of the team. And no one's going to be asked to do like, circus flips or anything like that. But it is, it's all stuff. It's fairly easy, really. It's just stuff you would do if someone was coming to visit your house and those kinds of things. So
if you want to sign up for those, there's a link on the website and on the app to get involved with the Connect with Northside team. Which is what we're calling our sort of welcome hospitality team. So if you want to be a greeter at a door, or, hang out at the welcome desk and, answer some questions, or be an usher, work at the coffee station, whatever, you can get on there and sign up. And we need a lot of people to help. So
that's right.
Ben, is there anything else from your direction that you think would be useful for us today?
I think, again, I just encourage the congregation. There's so many ways to plug in right now. And again, as we're coming up on the summer, don't forget about this place.
Yeah.
You can find us, whether it's online, whether you're in Florida or Africa or wherever, stay connected and don't let this be a time where you drift away. Just lean into it and use the tools that are available to really stay connected. And we're excited. We've got Vacation Bible School coming up, and there's just a lot of cool things going on. I've been blown away by the ministries that are evolving and continuing to evolve. We're in the middle of kind of a 5-year staffing plan and looking out and going, all right, let's dream. And what do these things look like? And so, a lot of that's being fed by the congregational survey we sent out when we were initially looking. It's things that I think Kevin and some of the others have alluded to, is looking at, our youth and children's offerings and making sure that those are the very best that we can put out there. And I know, Glenn, you're part of that process, and Christy, and I think doing the things that we need to do to be safe with our children, but also doing things that are going to attract and welcome new families as well. And so I think that's a ministry that I know we're looking at and want to invest in. And I think that that's where the church truly grows. And so we're looking at that. There's a lot of exciting things going on here, and I'm really excited. I will be excited for the new to wear off a little bit. And I'm like everybody else. I don't just choose change as my first option.
Right.
I think all of us want to find that routine to some degree, and we're going to get there. It's funny. you go back to what's different being Northside Church rather than Northside Methodist. And the funny part, initially was when we transitioned pastors is that, historically that was something we didn't have input in. They didn't have to like us. We didn't have to like them. We were stuck. And now we both have to enjoy that process. And that's a new process. And so, having served on the search team and going through that process, it's interesting. And so I can remember, and again, several of us were here through the previous two transitions. And I can remember when Don was selected and David was leaving after 10 years. Nobody wanted David to leave.
Right.
Nobody wanted Don here, and Don didn't want to be here.
Right.
We grow into these things.
Yeah.
And so I ask for everybody to be patient as we go through this process. And it's not just the pastor change, it's the change of going from a Methodist church and leaving a conference to really inventing a church from within. And so that's, we realize that it's asking a lot of everybody, and just ask for everybody's patience and grace in that process.
Well, Ben, definitely thank everyone on the board of servant directors from the Northside Now crew for their hard work, and we do appreciate it. And there's a lot of good stuff happening. And hang on, it's a fun ride. Patrick, what else do we have coming up soon? We talked about a lot of stuff already. What do we have coming up?
We got a few things still on the calendar. We've got Grief Share going on still through the 29th of May. So if you want to get plugged in on that, that's Sundays at 2:00. We've got Parents Night Out coming up on the 20th. That's real soon. So if you want to bring your kids by the church, drop all 12 of them off, whatever you want to do. It's $5 per kid, but $10 max per family. That's 5:30 to 8:30 on the 20th. And I think they're going to have some pizza there. So, yeah, if you want to sign up for that so we know how much pizza to get. We've also got the youth musical coming up June 3rd, 4th, and 5th. 3rd and the 4th, that's Friday and Saturday, and those times are 7 o'clock? And then on the 5th is a matinee on Sunday. What time is that one?
3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah, make sure you put that on the calendar. That's going to be really cool. We're going to the Wild West.
Yeah.
And then in July 11th through the 15th, we've got VBS on the calendar. So make sure you get online and sign up for that. It's called Make Waves this year. It's going to be a beach theme. So that'll be exciting.
Cool.
And then, like I said, you can get on. We've got signups online and on the app right now to join the Connect with Northside team. I know Daphne would really appreciate anybody that's willing to serve and say hi to new people.
And they're wanting to get that signed up, I think, before the end of July.
Yes.
So. And if you're interested in playing softball, we're going to start the second week of June in the West Jackson Church League. So if you're interested in playing softball, sign up for that. We're going to have a good time. Rev Kev's playing. That'll be fun.
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me. And thanks to all of you out there in the world for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at Northside Now Podcast. Go to our website, northsidejackson.com, or email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. We hope to hear from you soon. Once again, this is Patrick.
There's Glenn.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Ben.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.
Bye-bye.